So tonight we dive into the mud, the rubber, and the pure adrenaline of the sprint car and NASCAR weekend action. I'm Russ Fritz,
And I'm Nathan Johns.
and tonight we're revving up with a wild week of action ahead for the Ohio Sprint Speedweek of the All-Star Circuit of Champions and the NASCAR NASCAR Cup Series, as they travel south of the border to Mexico. So strap in because this isn't just racing. This is switching grooves. Good evening, race fans, and welcome to the most comprehensive Ohio Speedweek preview that you will find anywhere. I'm Russ Fritz, and over the course of this show, we're going to break down every single aspect of what makes this year's event the most anticipated in its 43-year history. This isn't just another week of racing. This is actually a true test of man and machine. 9 consecutive nights, 9 different tracks, over 1,500 miles of crisscrossing Ohio, and more than $250,000 in total prize money up for grabs, and a points championship that could literally change the trajectory of a driver's career. We'll examine each track's unique challenges, profile the top contenders, break down the new bonus structure that has teams buzzing, and even look at some dark horses who could surprise us all. Plus, we'll discuss how streaming changes are making the most accessible speed week ever for the fans. Whether you're a lifelong sprint car enthusiast or new to the dirt track scene, this is your ultimate guide to the next 9 days of open wheel to wheel action. And now let's get started. Attica Raceway Park, tonight, June 13th. It's already underway. Night 1 up here in Ohio at Attica actually sets the tone for the entire week. The 1/3 mile bull ring demands precision. The difference between victory and the wall is often inches. Last year, Cap Henry dominated here, using the bottom groove to perfection. But with $7,500 on the line instead of last year's $6,000, expect even more aggression. The key stat: 6 of the last 10 Attica Speedweek winners went on to finish in the top 3 in points. So that's going to be pretty amazing to see. And moving on to Saturday. Saturday actually takes us to the 3/8 mile Sharon Speedway, where Danny Dietrich's high-flying act stole the show last year. What makes Sharon unique is its widening surface. The track typically slicks off, but develops multiple grooves as the night progresses. Crew chiefs will be making the constant adjustments as the track changes. A pro tip: watch lap 15 to 20. That's when tire wear actually becomes a major factor. And Sunday, we move on to Millstream. The 4/10 mile oval in Findlay is a driver's track. The long straightaways reward horsepower, but the tight corners actually demand finesse. Last year's race saw 3 lead changes in the final 5 laps. With the increased purse this year, we might see even more late race drama this time around. And Monday, we move over to Wayne County Speedway. The 3/8 mile Wayne County Speedway is actually where fatigue starts setting in. teams will have worked 3 straight nights with minimal sleep, and this is where preparation pays off. The teams with the best systems for quick rebuilds and driver recovery will actually start separating themselves. And Tuesday night, well, that's the crown jewel, Eldora. Eldora's half mile returns to Speed Week after a year's absence. Tuesday night under the lights at Big E is what dreams are made of. The key here, managing momentum. Drivers need to carry speed through the corners without overdriving, and last year's absence makes this even more unpredictable. We could see some surprise performances. And Wednesday, we move on to Fremont. The 1/3 mile oval of Fremont Speedway is actually all about rhythm. The track's progressive banking allows for multiple lines, but the cushion often becomes the fastest way around. This is where championship contenders need to avoid getting caught in traffic. And Thursday, we move over to Waynesfield, the Little Bull Ring. Thursday's stop at the 1/3 mile Bull Ring Waynesfield Motorsports Park is the wild card. The tight confines lead to close racing, and last year's event saw Cale Thomas and Danny Dietrich swap the lead 3 times in the final 10 laps. With $7,500 on the line instead of $5,000 this year, expect even more fireworks. Friday night, a newcomer, Moeller Raceway Park. Friday, Moeller Raceway Park is actually the great unknown. At 3/8 mile, Moeller presents a fresh challenge to teams without previous notes here. Will be playing catch-up all night long. This could actually be where a local Ohio driver steals a win from the touring regulars. Atomic Speedway, the finale, Saturday night. So this year, it will be the Dean Niddle Memorial, and it is $26,554 to win. So the $26,000 to win finale at the high banked Atomic Speedway is actually worth more than some entire race weekends. The Dean Niddle Memorial has moved here from Portsmouth, bringing us its prestige and payout. The banking actually allows for breathtaking speeds, and drivers will be flirting with the cushion all night long. And last year, Danny Sams III shocked the entire world here. Who will it be this year? So that brings us to economics of Speed Week. Prize money breakdown. So let's talk numbers. The total possible winnings for a perfect Speed Week have jumped from $56,000 last year to a staggering $86,554 this year. But it's not just about the winners. Every A main starter earns at least $500 to start. That's up from last year's $300 to $400. The Atomic finale actually pays $1,554 just to start, and the points fund now pays 24 positions instead of just 5. So last place in points still earns $500. Not too shabby. This financial structure actually makes Speed Week viable for regional teams who have sat out in previous years. So the business behind the bonuses. Well, the new Victory Vault bonuses are revolutionary. Let's examine why sponsors are investing. Attica and Fremont, local bonus. Premier Planning Services wants to support Ohio grassroots racing. And second, the Indiana team bonus. Indy Race Parts is expanding their market to reach out to Indiana drivers. Australian Kiwi bonus. Complete Parts targets the growing international presence all the way from Australia. And the Dietrich bonus. It's just what we named it. Speedway Subaru is actually playing into the PA-Ohio rivalry and offering Danny Dietrich a $5,000 bonus if he can take home the title. So that's crazy. Never thought I'd see that. But hey, it's a good thing. So these aren't just handouts, they're actually strategic marketing plays that benefit the entire sport. Team budget considerations are actually running all 9 nights isn't cheap. Let's break down a typical budget. $15,000 to $20,000 just in tires, $8,000 to $12,000 in fuel, $5,000 in parts and engines, and $7,000 just in travel and lodging. With smart racing, a team could break even or profit even without winning, and that's huge for sustainability. It's just not cheap. You know, these guys they need all the help they can get. So some of the favorites, well, obviously Cap Henry, the defending Speedweek champion with over a decade of local track knowledge and a smooth driving style that makes it perfect for long weeks such as this. Danny Dietrich, the PA Posse star who's going to be invading Ohio and hunting that $5,000 bonus, who's actually aggressive when it counts. And Caleb Henry, a rising star with nothing to lose, and a team that is peaking this year at just the right time. Some dark horses? Well, we've got Jordan Ryan, the local. Last year's Wayne County winner actually flies under the radar. Cale Thomas, the Waynesfield specialist, could actually steal a night. And maybe Waynesfield again. And Danny Dietrich, with his breakout wins last year and defending Atomic Speedway winner, actually knows how to close the race. This year and every year during Speed Week, team dynamics are everything, and the crew will either make or break this week. And all week long, teams will actually rely on smart tire management, good calls by the crew chief, that includes strategic nights to push versus nights to be conservative, local knowledge of certain tracks, and an entire crew that can endure the grueling grind of the week. So, as for viewing, well, every single race will be live on Flow Racing with a multi-camera coverage, real-time data overlays, and driver and crew interviews. Anything not online, you can find on social media. Follow at All-Star Sprints for live updates you can't watch on TV or on streaming, bonus qualification announcements, and behind-the-scenes content. So, my bold forecast, well, I say that Caleb Henry wins 3 features, but Cap Henry takes the title via consistency. 1 rainout, I'm going to guess Millstream. And a rookie actually gets their first All-Star win at Moeller. That's just how I feel that's going to happen. 3 key takeaways. Well, this is actually the richest speed week in history, with $86,000 possible for a sweep and a $26,000 finale. The stakes have never been higher. The bonus structure is actually revolutionary. 7 different ways to pad your earnings makes this a game changer for teams. And Eldoro's return is the wild card. Tuesday night under the lights at Big E could either make or break any driver's season and decide the whole championship. My final thoughts, well, this Speed Week actually represents a new era in the All-Star Circuit of Champions future. The better payouts, smart bonuses, and greater accessibility. It's proof that sprint car racing is evolving while staying true to its roots. And to close out this segment, if your idea of heaven is the sound of 900 horsepower screaming into turn 1 for a slide job, or rubber squealing, door banging action on the pavement, hit the subscribe button to follow Switch and Grooves below for unfiltered takes, behind the scenes scoops, and wildest NASCAR and dirt track. Excuse me. Been fighting a little cold, so. But for the wildest stories from dirt tracks to NASCAR super speedways. Now, I pass it over to Nathan. What's up, Nathan?
Not much, Russ. How are you?
Not bad.
So it's been a little bit since I've done a NASCAR recap. So we're going to just bear with me as best I can. There's a lot I missed. There was a little bit going on. Prime has now taken over NASCAR's broadcasting duties. We started off with the Coke 600. Just quick summary. Ross Chastain won that race, which was kind of a little surprising that he finally won a race because his performance really has not been that great this year. So I'm a little surprised that he won, but I'm also glad that he finally got in the win column. Then we go on to Nashville, and, we've got our basic Denny Hamlin shenanigans. I still don't quite, agree with some of the stuff that was said, but, that's how it is. I will say, going back to Charlotte real quick, that I did call my shot. I hate to brag, but I did call my shot that it was not going to happen this year. Last year was Kyle Larson's best chance at winning both of them, and he blew it both years. So I'm going to take my moment of 5 seconds of fame and say, hey, I saw that one coming. We're going to roll on to later on in that week. We go into Michigan, and lo and behold, Dodge is finally coming back to the Truck Series, and eventually it will come back to the Cup Series, is my bold prediction. They announced at Michigan last week that Ram will re-enter the Truck Series. There's been no names, no teams, announced to be driving. If they're going to go with the celebrity one, I do think Cletus McFarland is going to be one of their drivers. I think that will be probably the funniest way to go about it. He is certainly not prepared for it, but if you're going to go big, you got to go with the celebrity that screams more Screaming Eagles in America than I think NASCAR itself does, which is a scary thought. But, you got to do what you got to do. I still am not a big fan of, Denny Hamlin's post-race shenanigans with that one. That one really set me off. There's a fine line between, being cocky and, for lack of better terms, playing into Juneteenth. He may have beat everybody's favorite driver, but you don't need to sound so not, like a man when you do it, I guess is a good way to put it. It is kind of comical.
You're not.
Are
you
I do have to say that Carson Hocevar has genuinely surprised me after, his more or less just wrecking people. He has pleasantly surprised me with his performance. I mean, yes, he did turn Ricky Stenhouse at Nashville, but he's backed that up with running up front, finishing second. Coke 600, he was doing great and then blew a motor. Go to Nashville, end up turning Ricky Stenhouse Jr. Then goes on to Michigan and basically is dominating that race and then blows a tire and loses that one. I don't think he'll do very good at Mexico this week, but then again, I didn't think he was going to do good at any of those tracks, and he's somehow been up front every single week. So he's not one I predict to win, but he's a sleeper that I would say would be a good one to watch. In other news about NASCAR, the judge has reversed the ruling on 2311 and Front Row keeping their charters. So not only does it put, a strain on 2311 and Front Row, but now it gives Tyler Reddick, Bubba Wallace, Noah Gragson, Todd Gilliland, and Zane Smith, along with all their other drivers. Corey Heim is one of the drivers that comes to mind. He's one of their sim drivers. That's a concern that they'll lose him. I'm trying to think who the other one was. There was another one that's going to be up for grabs if they don't get their charters. There was also rumor that NASCAR may make the teams pay back the funds they got as charters, which will be huge to the teams because then they'll lose out on that money. It may possibly send these teams probably down the chute if it doesn't.
Yeah, that's no good.
That is a scary thought that 2311 and front row could go under, because front row hasn't been performing bad, but they're not Hendrick or Penske or all these other teams. So that is definitely a crazy thought that Tyler Reddick could end up being bought out by somebody else mid-season, just like they did with
Wow.
Corey LaJoie and Justin Haley. I mean, that's a big story.
Yeah, that's crazy.
So I
Man.
was
Wow.
very surprised by that. Was a little bit concerned. I don't know how many people watched the highlights from Michigan. Alex Bowman took a vicious hit to the outside wall. I almost compare it to the Dale Sr. accident, because the amount of just no redirection, just straight on the outside wall, was a very scary impact. He definitely took a minute to get out of the car. He said that was the hardest hit he's ever taken. And it gives you flashbacks to last year when he broke his back in the sprint car race. Definitely a scary accident. But it was definitely a little hard. In other lighthearted news, and I'm going to call it lighthearted just because my opinion is very, very opinionated. We'll just say that. Denny Hamlin will not be in the 11 car this week, so there is no chance of a three-peat. He proceeded to stay home for his girlfriend's, to give birth to his first son. So Ryan Truex will be in the 11 car this week. So we don't have to hear about people beating their favorite drivers, or, all this Juneteenth crap, as we'll call it. So I'm ecstatic about it. I am a little, intrigued on how this race is going to go from watching practice earlier. It's definitely going to be an interesting race. The cars seem very, very loose. I've seen a lot of drivers hit the rumble strips and just go for a ride, not roll over, but the cars are just not in the track. So it is going to be an interesting race. I'm not sure how I feel about the circuit yet. It is kind of weird to me, but then again, we haven't seen an Xfinity race there yet, so we're going to wait and see how that one goes. My drivers to watch are the typical ones. SVG, AJ Allmendinger. AJ Allmendinger was struggling in practice earlier. I did see that he was not happy with the car. He managed, I think, a 25th fastest practice time. So that's something a little concerning. But SVG, AJ Allmendinger, definitely keep an eye on McDowell. He jumped to the top of the boards very late in the first practice. Actually knocked Briscoe off the fastest time, which that's something to talk about. He's got 3 poles in a row coming into this race. So that is insane that he really didn't do anything since Daytona and already has 4 poles, if not more. I forget if he had any other poles, but he's got at least 3 poles since NASCAR went to Prime. So that's a crazy, crazy stat. So we got SVG, we got Dinger, we got McDowell. I'm trying to think what other ones I have. Oh, got to go with the hometown favorite. Got to go with Suarez. I will say that there was a quote from Blaney this week. I think it was on the Sirius XM radio show, where if Daniel Suarez is anywhere near you, they're just going to wave him by, because nobody wants to wreck the hometown guy. And Blaney was laughing about it. He's just going to stick the finger out the window to point him to go by him. So that one did make me laugh. I don't know if he'll be a favorite to win, but he'll definitely be the fan favorite. And I think it's funny to see, hear people joke about that. I think it'll be kind of comical to see, what happens, and if anybody does end up getting into Suarez, if they're going to run him out of town, which is kind of comical.
Didn't he show up to the garage area and find a piñata hanging in his stall?
I did not hear that, but I should. That would be hilarious. I think that would be really funny if that was the case.
Everybody's like, don't tell Bubba.
I didn't hear that one. I'll have to look for that. But there's definitely a lot of fun to be had down there. I think it'll be a decent race, but I'm not really sure what to think of it yet. There was one more story, and I'm trying to think what it was now. There was something else. Darn it, the pinata thing got me off my guard. I was
Well,
all prepared.
to be honest, the Juneteenth thing isn't so bad because it's
It's
about.
the way he went about it after the win is what made it. I don't know of a
Yeah,
good
I mean,
way
it's
I don't know of a good way to describe it, but it definitely did not. It was kind of a stretch on his normal post win uh, post win interviews. Nothing against Juneteenth, but there was definitely an edge to it that just did not sit well with me, and apparently it didn't sit well with a bunch of other NASCAR fans. I don't know if he was trying to apologize to his dad, but it definitely did not come out right. It probably could have been worded differently, but it was kind of comical the way they went about it. Oh, in other comical news, speaking of comical, Atlanta has been rebranded,
oh
and I
yeah.
will never understand this. Atlanta is now no longer known as Atlanta Motor Speedway. It is known as Echo Park Speedway. Okay,
What can you
like we
do?
don't already have that with Coda. I mean, I would understand if it was like one syllable, like Lowe's Motor Speedway. That one flows. Echo Park
Oh,
Motor Speedway. Who's coming up with these ideas? You got to come up with a better naming. I mean, Worldwide Technology, Center Speedway. That is in the realms of how bad Echo Park Speedway sounds. Lowe's at least sounded like a good name, like Lowe's Motor Speedway. I'll give them that one. That one flows pretty good.
no,
But Echo
California,
Park and Worldwide Technology Motor Speedway, they don't sound that
California,
great. Auto
California
Club
used to be
was even
Auto
good.
Club. Yeah,
Auto Club was that was one that you could flow with. It wasn't 15 syllables in the first two words. I I really wish they would just simplify these names. I mean, EP Motor Speedway, sounds at least semi easier to say, but
no,
I don't really know.
shorten up the name a little bit, like Echo Park Speedway,
I mean,
or
to be fair, we have a really long, like, I don't even think I could even attempt to pronounce this week's, Mexico Grand Prix track. I'm not even going to attempt it on here because I will probably insult a lot of people because I am not good at that stuff. I cannot speak Spanish. I'm not bilingual at
yeah,
all for that.
don't even
I won't even
try.
attempt it. But I will say that I did see a funny on the Instagram this week. They had to give the NASCAR haulers a, for lack of better terms, armored escort from the Mexican border to the track, which I thought was absolutely comical when you see these people driving on the streets like it's, the mob. They're just driving down the streets escorting them. I thought that was the funniest thing ever. I mean, Dodge only made their announcement, a week ago? And they're already showing their sponsorship by escorting these people down the streets in armored Dodge Ram pickup trucks, which I thought was the funniest thing ever. That they just announced it a week ago, and now they've got these guys in the back of their trucks with the ARs, got the Dodge written right across the front of the truck. I
If
thought
it's
it was
that
pretty funny how quick that was.
if it's that bad, why even go?
Yeah, that's what I was going to say is NASCAR, it's going to be a great idea to go down to, Mexico and have this race while they're having armored trucks drive these teams into Mexico, which on top of that, we've already had to delay. There was an update to the schedule. They had to delay the races and practices because there was issues with travel. From what I understand, the teams got to work on their cars Monday morning and had to drive from Michigan straight to Mexico. There was no going back to the shop. They took their Mexico cars with them, worked on them in Michigan, and then drove them down from Michigan to Mexico.
No, I
And
guess
that took over the course of a week, which was quite insane.
I guess what the airplane that they were supposed to take blew an engine on the
I,
runway or
I
something.
believe it was Ryan Vargas, which I believe he is semi from that area. I guess they went to take off, and there was a catastrophic failure with engine number two. It was described to me as it was a ball of fire, and it was right as they went to take off. So they aborted takeoff, and they went back to the terminal, and I guess it delayed the flight. But I mean, this was Thursday, and we all know what happened within aviation on Thursday with the massive crash in Israel, or I don't know if it was Israel or I forget where it was. But either way, there was a massive crash, so it kind of gives you that scare of what's going on. So they never determined if it was a bird strike or what it was. They just said it was a catastrophic. They went to lift off and boom. So
That's crazy.
fortunately, nobody was hurt, unless you count the bird that it possibly was. And that bird wasn't hurt; it was annihilated probably. So,
Man, oh man.
but it's been an interesting week when it comes to this Mexico race. I mean, I'm kind of excited to see how it looks. I'm hoping it's not like another Coda because I feel like Coda is more of an F1 track than NASCAR needs to be on. But then again, they did shorten up the course, so maybe they'll find a way to shorten up the course for this Mexican Grand Prix thing. But I don't really understand it. There's a lot of silliness going on. I mean, heck, we had a race at Rockingham, and not even a week after they finished that race, track goes up for sale. You know, and I still can't wrap my head around that. As that was a big deal that track came back and everybody was all excited, and they just hammered the sign right in the ground right after the race. Like, why? That was a good race.
They needed to make some money real quick.
Sell the track, I guess. I mean, I was a little surprised at how sudden they did that, but I don't know. It's just crazy to me to all the stuff that is going on. I mean, I missed 3 weeks worth of NASCAR, episodes, and all this stuff happens. I mean, heck, they announced that the France family wanted to run their own charter, and they had talked about once they got the funds from this lawsuit, they were going to start their own team. So essentially, that's like Roger Goodell, banning a team from playing and then taking all their players to create his own team. That's a conflict of interest if I've ever seen one.
Well, yeah, that's
I
exactly
mean,
why they
I think
wanted
it's
to.
hilarious that he wanted to start his own team.
That's exactly why they wanted to push this bullshit charter agreement this time around, and they didn't want to negotiate at all. I think four is perfectly fine. Instead of taking it, they just took more. Now next time around, they'll probably take another one, make it two only. Which I'm so
Yeah.
sick of this crap. The charter system needs to go. The bullshit chase system needs to go. The stage racing needs to go. They've completely ruined the sport.
Well, we don't even know what teams are going to be what, but there's already talks of 5 manufacturers, and we've already got Chevy, we've got Toyota, we've got Ford, we're going to get Dodge. Are we going to get Honda? I mean, they've got all these teams, magically appearing. You've got the France family trying to start one along with the teams that are already being shut down. We've got supposedly 5 manufacturers. At least 4 of them or 3 of them are current. One of them is supposedly coming in 2027, which is Dodge. But I mean, we're going to be up to 5 manufacturers with, at that point, probably each team has 2 cars. And then more teams have got grandfathered in. Like, this makes zero sense to me. I mean, all the teams that have 4 drivers now, they're going to have the 4 drivers. All the teams that get into the new charter deal, they're going to get 3. And then when that deal changes to 2, they're going to have, they're going to grandfather it in. So why not just leave it the way it is instead of restricting teams?
No, I don't.
Whatever you have is whatever you have.
Hey, to be honest with you, that's as bad as Brad Sweet running his own series, which he has every right to do, and I'm not going to sit here and protest it. But do I agree with it? No, I don't agree with it. But
Yeah.
he does have every right to do it. But NASCAR's different. It's they're such I don't know such a
I mean,
profitable company. I mean,
I
they're
guess
just
here's my thoughts on that one. Is you've got the War of Outlaws, you've got High Limits, you've got the War of Outlaws late models, you've got the Lucas Tour. There is always going to be a competitive series. With NASCAR, there
there isn't
really
one.
isn't. They kind of have that monopoly, but at the same time, nobody else does it the way they do. So yeah, NASCAR could go start their own series, but then they're not going to have as many followers. It's going to be like the Lucas Tour or like the Ward Outlaws, for instance, and the High Limit Tour. One tour is going to get more fans than the other, and then drivers are going to have to pick and choose what series they run, and they can't go back and forth between them. Honestly, if that were to happen in NASCAR, I don't know who's going to go where. I mean, you might get two teams that go start their own series. How are you going to run a series off six cars, we'll call it? Maybe seven if you count the, Riley Herbst, which Riley Herbst is another one that could possibly lose out in the 2311 not having charters. That's the one I was forgetting because he's not that great. Um, but I mean, you know, you've got seven drivers that are possibly out rides in NASCAR. It's not like Michael
No,
Jordan can make its own series.
and here's the thing here's my opinion about it. I honestly I could care less about 2311 and all that stuff,
Likewise,
but
likewise.
but from the professional side of it and the legal side of it, it's complete bullshit that another judge can go in and just reverse the ruling in the middle of the season. That should not have happened. It's a total crock if you ask me, and it's wrong.
Honestly, I
It's
feel
horse
like it
shit.
shouldn't have had to happen in the first place. I feel like because they didn't sign it, you know, that's their loss. All these other teams, and I hate to go back to this because I feel like we're just repeating ourselves over and over again. These teams chose not to sign the charter agreement. Yes, NASCAR rushed it, so that is the part on their end that I can understand. But because they chose not to sign it, but they still get to participate, you can't, just like they said earlier in the season, you can't have your cake, have a cake and eat it too. You gotta kind of,
And
you can't do both.
that's where I feel that, yeah, NASCAR rushed it, and that was just a strategic move on NASCAR's part. They did that intentionally, and they kept
Yes.
pushing it off and pushing it off and pushing it off. And they had 2 years to do this, and they kept pushing it off, and they rushed it at the end as a strategic play by their corporation, so they could get what they wanted and get rid of get rid of some of the charters the teams can have, and they can have their own charters, which is total bull. And the teams, as an entirety, all the teams in NASCAR should have rallied together and done this, and then maybe this lawsuit would have had a chance. But I don't think it has any chance now that
With only two
99% of the
teams.
teams signed it. And if the
Yeah.
teams would have got together and stuck together as a whole, they possibly could have even started their own a whole new series and put NASCAR out of contention. But you're not going to be able to put NASCAR out of contention if you split the series and the teams in half. It's not going to work.
Yeah. So it's definitely an interesting uh, play, a different interesting storyline for how this is all played out. I mean, this has got more drama in it than the Days of Our Lives soap operas, which is sad to say that I can remember that title because they're it's so cheesy that you know it almost mimics daytime soap operas. Like this is getting out of hand It needs to stop being a story. Either give them their charters and be done with it, or cut them off and be done. This doesn't need to keep going back and forth. Keep the decisions private, and once the decision's made, then you could release it all. We don't need to be playing this along episode by episode.
I mean, honestly, I agree with 2311 and Front Row on their view of what's wrong and why they didn't sign it. I agree 100% with that. NASCAR does have a monopoly. They claim they don't, but they sure as hell do. I mean, look, they own ARCA. They own just about every damn thing out there.
They own like 4 different series outside of NASCAR, like out of the U.S. version.
They even own the USAC quarter midgets now, and that's a NASCAR entity now. I mean, they buy up everything. I'm surprised they haven't started their own sprint car series, to be honest with you. But
I mean, that's probably next in line. I guarantee it.
But they also have, all the parts for the cars have to come from a single source, and that's a monopoly. You know damn well that NASCAR is getting a kickback off of that.
I guarantee it.
If they don't even own the company that's supplying the parts in the first place.
Well,
we don't know about. So,
here's one that caught my attention with this also, is when you bring that up with the single source part, that does kind of remind me. This week, and I know we talked about it earlier in the year, NASCAR released, or I guess Amazon Prime released the documentary of the Garage 56, storyline where they went over to Le Mans and raced. And when you bring up the single source part, that does, bring up the idea of this wasn't a, team idea. NASCAR went to Hendrick Motorsports with this idea. This wasn't a group decision. Essentially, Jim France went with Bill France Sr. years and years ago. I think it was like 1963, they said. They went to Le Mans. And I think it was like 1967 or 73, maybe it was. I forget what year they went. They sent 2 NASCAR cars to Le Mans. One car was out within the first 2 laps, and they wanted to go back because they were thirsty for more. So the 100th anniversary, they go out to Le Mans and they do the whole documentary on how they made this thing happen. They essentially took a NASCAR next-gen car and chopped it up and made it legal for Le Mans. Like, they didn't really do anything else. They literally took roll cage parts and everything and just chopped them out of the car. They made this car, I think, 2,300 pounds. This car is heavy to start with. They literally had a pile from the documentary. They had a pile of just tubing. They chopped out of this car to put a giant fuel cell in the back of the car. And they put different diffuser, arms on, or fins on the front of the car and the back of the car. My fiance described it as looking at the old Transformer cars they ran in back when NASCAR was promoting Transformers. It literally looked like one of those cars whenever they were done. I mean, they still had the same issues that the next gen car had. The rocker panel or rocker box fires with the rubber buildup. All these parts are coming from NASCAR. They literally took a NASCAR Cup car and all the parts that made it legal and just made it lighter. Like, they really didn't change anything for it. Like, they weren't allowed to go over 200 miles an hour down the straightaway, which honestly would have been pretty freaking cool to see that. But, NASCAR got a kickback from Hendrick doing that. Goodyear kicked in. Chevy kicked in. Hendrick Motorsports made this car based on NASCAR's wants. This wasn't a, hey, we should do this. We need to pick a good team. This was NASCAR. We want to do this. Hendrick, you're doing this. Like, all these parts were already there. They didn't get to modify them. They just put them on the car. So NASCAR, has the parts, and they can do whatever the heck they want with them.
In my opinion, this car, yes, while it may be more durable, that also makes it more unsafe than the old car because there is nothing to crush and absorb impact. The driver is absorbing every bit of impact in this car, which has ruined Kurt Busch's career, made him come to an end a lot sooner than he should have.
Made Ryan Preece an astronaut.
And actually almost took Alex Bowman out and ended his career, which luckily it
Yep.
didn't for Alex. So this car is not any safer than the old car. They flip over so much easier. They look stupid if you ask me. I think the hood louvers are actually a stupid looking design, which takes away from sponsor space, which is one reason they had to move the freaking number forward on the side of the car, which looks
Because they've got
absolutely
don't have a room on the hood. Yeah.
it looks absolutely ridiculous. I think it is the stupidest thing ever when it comes to looks. I don't like it on any race car, to be honest with you. You know,
Yeah.
on a go kart, it's different because the go kart's just got a little side panel. You know, I mean, I had my number forward on my cart. You know, a
I know
sprint
the sprint
car.
cars. Was it the 41 car has his all the way to the front on the left side? I
Well,
remember
yeah,
seeing a
and
photo of that.
that's what I was getting at on a sprint car or something like that. It's a little bit different because that's
Yeah,
how they've always been. But
and that's where they have
on
to.
a
There's nothing on the bottom.
when something is between the wheels, though, when you put something between the wheels, it looks goofy when it's closer to one or the other. In my opinion,
Yes,
it looks better in the center.
center.
That's just my feel about it. Not everybody feels that way, and that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But I think it looks ridiculous. But that's just me, you know.
Yeah,
But they've shortened the trunk up, you know. Now the trunk's like this big, and they got
it
no
looks like a
space.
Corvette trunk. It's really small.
You know, these things look like your soccer mom car that was, you know, they remind me of the old Dodge Neons, you know, size wise. I'm not talking about the entire look, but size wise, you know.
And that's one thing I did notice also when NASCAR was talking about the EV, which conveniently enough, we heard about this in Chicago last year, but haven't heard anything about it since. They didn't run it at Bowman Gray when we were there, so maybe they've moved on. But it's awfully convenient that they had this big NASCAR EV thing where they were running it in LA and they ran it at Chicago last year to do burnouts with. But yet, these cars, they're only one design change away from looking like that car. I mean, you've only got so much trunk space now. Those new EV cars look like a BMW. It's just the BMW SUV. It's just got a round back with a wing on top. It looks like the new Ford Mustang E's, and
No,
those things are stupid looking.
I'm sorry. What is this? The Generation 7 car, basically?
This is Gen 7, yeah.
I mean, the Generation 8 NASCAR is probably going to be a freaking crossover SUV because nobody
That's what
makes cars
it
anymore.
literally looks like, the Ford Mustang Mach E, which essentially is not a Mustang anymore. It's a crossover. Next thing we're gonna have Subarus in there. Subaru Imprezas running in there. We're gonna forget all about Chevy, Toyota, and Ford and Dodge, and we're gonna run Subarus in a American class, which isn't even from America. It's from frickin' Japan. That's where it should run. Is cars like that should run in Japan, where they actually belong over there. We don't need this EV crap.
And
I
that's
noticed that Ford or Dodge is going back on their, EV crisis. So hopefully this is a sign of things to come where everybody goes back to the good looking, the cars actually run right. Maybe we'll get rid of this IMSA looking car finally.
so
But it is frustrating that these cars, they're not very safe. I mean, they're supposed to be safe, but I mean, heck, they're so unsafe that people have to use cameras just to look around them. You can't just look in the mirror. You have to use a camera on your
yeah, you can't
dashboard to see
see.
where everybody is.
You can't see over the damn trunk with a mirror. You have to have a camera that's mounted just above the bumper to be able to see who the hell's behind you.
I mean,
You
and
know,
what makes it even crazier is, they take flight. You can't see out of them, and they're worried about people getting hurt, so they don't want to add horsepower. That's how you fix it. You decrease the horsepower, but you make it so people can't see out of them. Like that fixes your safety issue.
the Gen 6 car was fine. I was perfectly fine with that car. It wasn't too bad. There were some things that needed to change. You know,
Yes.
like the belly pan still needed to go because that car had a belly pan on it too. That needed to go, but it didn't have this stupid diffuser on it and everything else. But the drivers
I agree
really.
with that, Kevin. I agree with that.
I didn't
I
think
don't know
Kevin
how to
actually
pronounce your
watched my
last
show.
name.
Hey, what's up, Kevin?
I don't know how to pronounce your last name. I don't want to pronounce it wrong, but I mean you're not wrong.
It's
I
Kevin.
do feel like the A pillar mirror is acceptable, but not the center mirror. Like that's just mirror blocking. I feel like for a safety wise, maybe that little what pop can sized mirror on the A pillar because of the seat construction. I feel like that's acceptable, but rear view mirror you really don't need. You definitely don't need a camera because all people are going to do a mirror block.
Well, you just rely on your spotter nowadays, anyway. So I mean,
I
and
mean, you're not
Kevin,
wrong with that either.
Kevin J. Cox is actually a huge asphalt guy. He's not dirt like me. He's a huge asphalt guy, and his family actually owns Sandusky Speedway, so he knows asphalt racing. He's been around
Okay,
it his
so then here's a
entire
question
life.
for Kevin. If Kevin wants to
So
chime in on this,
and hold up,
okay.
and Kevin being involved in asphalt racing his entire life has even just gave up on NASCAR. So what does that tell you? People like that love asphalt driving or asphalt racing, giving up on the sport, that makes a statement right there.
I like what you said, Kevin, about the right side mirror. I'm not sure how they'd be able to visibly see that, but I do like your thought, your where you're going with that. Here's a question for you, and I don't know if you'll be able to respond in the comments or how they'll have you respond in the series around like local series now. Um, yeah, not I know it's not worth watching anymore.
Now remember,
Um,
he's actually a little bit behind on the live stream than we are, so just remember
okay.
that.
When it comes to local racing, like in Ohio or Pennsylvania, I'm not talking big NASCAR series. I'm not talking the Cars Tour. I'm talking local, oval pavement tracks. Do people run mirrors, or is that only when you get up into the higher series that you have a spotter and the mirror? Because I know that some of the people at Bowman Gray they had mirrors in their modifieds, but they also had a spotter. Are we able to run races with just a spotter and not have mirrors, or do people run them with mirrors and most people don't have a spotter? I don't watch a whole lot of local pavement racing just because we don't have really one near us. We mostly have dirt, but I'm curious if most people locally run it with just a mirror, just a spotter, or a combination of both. So hopefully he'll be able to answer that for me because I kind of wondered that. I feel like the further up you
Now,
go, the more you know, the more
Kev,
easier they make it because you don't have to rely on the stuff you did coming up through the ranks, which is kind of dumb.
Kevin will be able to answer that because he was a driver at one time, and
Yeah.
then he's kind
Well, I
of
didn't know if he was going to have to type it out or if he was going to have to do a voice
and,
thing.
and he's slowly taking over the racetrack itself as his dad's
Yeah.
getting older and stuff like that. So they're doing a hell of a job up there. Pavement racing just isn't my thing. So, but
See, I don't really follow pavement racing only because, all right, small left side mirror is what the mods run, and that's what we are allowed in. Okay, okay, that's what I wanted to know. Is I didn't know if certain classes required certain things, or if it was an option to run one or the other. The left side mirror, I have seen that in a few cars. Do you think it is possible to run a small one on the left side and the right side, or is just the left side mirror okay to run because you have a spotter for the right side? Because far enough up, you'll be able to see if somebody's going to be alongside you. I didn't know if you had to run both or if you even needed to run both.
and like I said, it'll take him a little bit to answer because the live
Yeah.
stream's about 15 seconds behind us actually doing it.
And I
So
was having problems with my Facebook, so I can't even watch our live feed. I was trying to pull it up when you shut the camera off for me, and I can't seem to get mine to pull up so I could watch it. But I honestly I am curious on that. Like I know when Russ and I went to Bowman Gray, we couldn't we could look in the cars and see the camera. Okay. I was just curious. I know that's probably a personal preference thing. I was just curious how they normally do it, or how how the rest of the pavement community does it. So that is good information to know. I was just curious. Um, but I mean, I know sitting in the stands when they had the red flag, you could see the camera pretty clearly. Like, it wasn't a, I wouldn't say it's a small display that only the drivers could watch. It was big enough that we were, would you say, 25, maybe 30 feet away, Russ? And you
Yeah.
could visibly see the people, behind the car. Like, you could see exactly where the camera was pointing.
Well,
It
and
almost,
it sits
yeah,
on the left side of the dashboard, right next to the window. It's about a foot and a half long, and
I like
probably
that, Kevin. I like
I would
that.
say about 6 inches tall. So I
Yeah,
mean,
like, it wasn't a small display, and it had good enough quality that it looked like something they would have showed on TV. They could literally take the feed from the rear bumper of those cars and put it in a NASCAR broadcast, and nobody would have known the difference because it lines up almost perfectly with what they show. It's almost the exact same feed, and
so
that's a crazy thought to me.
here's a question I have for Kevin. I don't really get to talk to him a whole lot at work because we're always busy. But uh, since he feels this way about the cameras and the mirrors, I just wonder how he would actually feel about how the dirt track side is starting to go without a flagman and using a video board rather than a flagman. Do you think that would be something to do in the pavement side of things? No,
I'm kind of curious because I've never seen that, but I don't know if I even like that idea.
that's
I feel
at
like a
Lincoln.
flagman's better.
That's over at Lincoln Speedway.
I've never. I'll have to go look at that because I didn't even know that that was a thing.
Hmm.
I'm kind of curious how that works. That they just, without a flagman, they just use the video board. That's so dumb. Because how are you supposed to look up at that?
Well, it's mounted on the front of the flag stand, and then there's one mounted behind it so the fans can see.
So
And they
there's no
literally
flagman. It just shows the colors.
no, it shows a picture of a hand waving a flag
Oh,
or a
that's so
video.
dumb. Okay, you might have to repeat that for him, Russ.
Okay,
Sorry.
so what do you feel asphalt, Kevin, going the direction that some of the dirt tracks have gone, specifically Lincoln Speedway in Pennsylvania, with eliminating the flagman and actually using a video board mounted to the front of the flag stand to actually flag the race rather than an actual person. But yeah, they actually took videos of somebody waving a flag, and then that's what they show on the board. It's it's kind of silly in my opinion, but
I mean, yes, it is silly. I can understand kind of why they would do that. So if there was, I know there's videos of cars getting up high enough to catch the flag stand. So I could kind of understand that, but you know, those are rare occurrences. That's why that's a little odd to me.
eh,
Mm.
but
I can't really understand that one.
we know the risk when we step up on that flag stand. I
I
mean,
was gonna say, if you took the position, it's a risk.
I mean
So I mean,
the very flag stand I was on in 2023, we lost a flagman from a car hitting it. Now it was
yeah,
an entirely new flag stand itself, but it was the same location, same track,
yeah.
but they made it a little bit safer, you know.
And see, I hate to say that's what it takes to make improvements because that's not nice. Okay, let's see what he said.
A lot of series went to in-car lights. They got a light bar that flashes inside of the car, yellow, green, red, white, flashing white for checkered. But you need a flagman. That sounds stupid.
I was gonna say I agree with what he said with that. It just sounds stupid. I'm gonna have to go back and look at that.
Yeah,
I've never heard of that, and that just sounds dumb. The
you could
light
see
bar
it.
thing I do kind of like though.
I like that as an added feature in a race car. That's actually a good thing. That's the first time I've ever heard
Almost
of
like the
that.
Indy cars, like with the brake lights. Like when there's a caution, the light flashes. Or not the Indy cars, like the IMSA cars. I've seen them do that when they're under caution. The light will flash on the back. I do kind of like that idea, but at the same time, I can't see that working with no flagman. Like that's
Now, one thing,
honestly probably the dumbest thing I've ever heard of is getting rid of the flagman for that.
and one thing that I find kind of silly, especially in dirt track racing. I can't really speak for asphalt. Like I said, I'm not an asphalt guy, but in dirt track racing, especially with the speed and the pace that we have with these shorter racetracks, given two to go is like one of the most ridiculous things I've ever seen. Because
With like
you're
the
already
white and
trying to
checkered, yeah.
yeah, you're already trying to hurry up and switch flags. You give them five to go with your hand, and then why the hell do we need to give them two to go? They it's not that hard. They could be counting down 5 laps in their head after you give them five to go. And
Honestly,
90% of the time, the guys are looking at the video boards going on the straightaway. They even admit to doing it. So, and in go kart racing, it's one of the worst things to do in go kart racing because at halfway they start driving like jackasses sometimes. So why give them two to go? We don't need that.
yeah.
So
I mean,
I refuse to give two to go when I'm on a flag stand. I will never do it. I don't care. I won't do it, and it'll never happen from me.
maybe it's maybe it's just me, but I feel like this should be how they should flag. And I know that everybody has their own opinions on this. You get the green flag. If there's a caution, you get you get the caution flag. I feel like halfway the crossing, I get that. I don't understand five to go. You know, if you don't give them five to go and you give them the two flags, if you're not within range, there's no point in trying to make a move. You've only got 2 laps to make a move. If you ain't close enough, desperation ain't going to do you anything. It's just going to draw caution and take you out of the race. Maybe it's just
Hmm.
me, but I feel like the only movements from the flagman should be green flag or, whatever file movement, whatever you got to do. That one I understand, double file or single file. I can understand that. One to go. I understand that one. Green flag, red flag, which usually the red flag is you usually know you're getting red flag, so the flagman doesn't have to really do a whole lot with that other than wave it. And maybe when they go back from red yellow, usually when a yellow flag, you know it's going to happen. But I don't feel like five to go is necessary. Two to go, don't you've only got 2 laps, and when you're within range, then maybe. But 9 times out of 10, when you give them a two to go, they ain't gonna have a whole lot of time to react anyway. Excuse me.
Yeah, and I'm not even referring when I say anything about the way I will flag is I'm not referring at all to asphalt.
Yeah.
I don't expect I will ever flag an asphalt race. But in sprint cars and go karts, I'll never do it. Especially go karts, I just won't
Yeah.
do it.
I feel like two to go is acceptable. Five to go is unnecessary. Because I mean, they're gonna count down anyway. You don't need to do both. If you give them two to go, they may not even catch it, and then they're just going to see the white flag and see the checkered flag. Like I don't.
That's one reason I refuse to do it because there have been guys mistaken the tail of the white flag for the end of the race, or the tail of the checkered, I should say, for the actual checkered flag, and it's actually 2 laps to go.
Yeah.
So they've actually screwed themselves from some dumb thing that they're having the flagman do, and I'm not going to do that.
Like I wouldn't. Maybe it's just the way you hold the flags that makes me wonder that one. But if you hold them together, you see a white, or even if you do a green flag and a white flag, you don't have to do. Maybe it's just the way you do it. I don't know. I've never flagged to the extent that Russ has. Just for anybody wondering, but I feel like if people do have that issue getting the white flag and the checkered flag mixed up, maybe a flagman will use a different flag. I don't know. I'm just putting information or my opinion out there. It all could depend on how you do it. I feel like if you're gonna give them five to go, don't give them two to go. or if you're going to give them 2 to go, you don't signal 5 to go. It's just unnecessary movement at that point. And but trust me, on small tracks like the ones you and I have been to, Russ, 3 laps goes by pretty quick. You may get the wrong driver, and by the time you react to the first driver to the next driver, your timing could be off just that little bit, and you could be signaling to the wrong guy that it's 2 to go. So it was nice getting in from you, Kevin. I appreciate you answering our questions. That actually helped a lot.
Hey, oh yeah, Kevin. You ever want to join, man? And talk about the asphalt side of things? Hey, you're more than welcome to. So
I need some more asphalt people to help me back up my opinions.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm all for it, man. I'll bring him out sometime, and I could talk to him more about it later on.
That works.
Hey, thanks for joining us, Kevin.
Yep. Thank you, Kevin. So that's all I can think of for this week. I mean, I gave out my picks for NASCAR. I can't really see a new winner this week. Maybe SVG gets second career win. I can't really see anybody surprising me this week. I think a lot of oval guys are going to struggle this week because this is good. We've got quite a few road course ringers in the field, so I'm skeptical that we'll get a new winner. Maybe a regular will win if the road course ringers get caught up in traffic, but I still think that this track is going to be more of a road course ringer track than an oval guy track. One may get lucky, but one of the dark horses I would think is nobody ever thinks McDowell is very good on road courses, but yet that's his background. So, I mean, if I'm going to pick a long shot dark horse, I would have to say McDowell just because he's not known to be good really on either track specifically, but he's definitely way better on road courses than he is on ovals, in my opinion. And he's shown speed on ovals this year, but also so is SVG. So SVG might be a good pick. And also, he's trending in the right direction now. If he gets this win here, he could make it into the next round and get to the Roval and then move on to the Elite Eight. And I don't think anybody would see that coming. He gets one win and he gets good enough on ovals like he has been. It's very possible we could see him going into the playoffs and making a semi-deep run in the playoffs if things work out the way they are currently. He's not pointed his way in yet, but his stats have definitely started trending in the right direction for SVG.
And that's exactly how I feel about this week's Speedweek for the Napa All-Star Circuit of Champions presented by Valvoline. Is that we're going to get some first-time winners, but some of these local guys, they're going to be tough contenders, man. I'm going to tell you what. But as far as the championship comes, it's going to be either Cap Henry again or Caleb Henry. I don't see anybody else up there competing for the championship. And it's not to put anybody else's talent down. It's just these guys have been fast and consistent. And they know these racetracks. Cap Henry's been around a long time. He knows 99% of these tracks. So his crew chief, Zach Myers, knows what to do with the car. Anytime that Cap tells him he needs a change, boom, he's right on it. Zach Myers knows his sprint cars inside and out, top to bottom, left to right. And I will give that credit. A lot of people don't like Cap, and that's fine. And Cap Henry knows these racetracks. He knows how these racetracks change throughout the night. He knows what the track's going to do, especially being a local driver and races these every single week. And Caleb Henry, his team is phenomenal. The car is fast, right along with Cap Henry. His cars are fast. So they've got the people and the teams behind them to actually be super competitive and to win this championship. Hey, Kevin.
Thanks for joining us, Kevin W. Nice to have a new viewer.
we're actually right at the end of the show. We're getting ready to close out, but you can go back and watch the live episode on YouTube at Switch and Grooves or on Facebook. It will be uploaded shortly after we end, so you can go back and watch the whole thing. But
I think that's our first YouTube comment I've seen. That's actually kind of cool. I think he's the first one
that's
I've ever
nice.
seen.
I'm glad to see a YouTube comment finally come through. It's usually Facebook comments. So
So that's the first one I've seen. So I'm excited to see that we're finally getting some YouTube comments on here. I wasn't expecting that.
but yeah, this speed week is going to be exciting. Rich Farmer is doing much more for the All Stars than a lot of people thought he could do, and he's he's good for the All Stars. I mean, as much as people may not like him or love him, Rich is good for the All Stars, and what they've got going this year is a good thing. Not to take anything away from Aaron Fry last year. Aaron Fry did a great job with what he was given to work with. But now that the All Stars are back in control of it, I look for it to be bigger and better than it ever was, because it's always been an All Star thing, anyways. Not to take away anything from Fast or Aaron Fry. Aaron Fry's a great guy, and he did a great job last year with what he was given to work with. But now that the All Stars are back in control, which are the original owners of Speedweek, I see a lot more room for expandability. So
We got to get our buddy back on here too. I forgot about him.
I think this year is just a fraction of what we are to see to come from the All Stars going forward. So I'm looking forward to watching it, and maybe I can travel down to Moeller next Friday. I was hoping to, since I've never been there. I've been everywhere else.
You haven't been to any of the PA tracks yet. What's going on, Russ?
I haven't been to Atomic, but I've been to Lernerville. So
you've been to Lernerville, but you haven't been to Lincoln. You haven't been to Port Royal. You know what's going on? No Williams Grove, no nothing.
Well, and if
you step out of your comfort zone.
If you've noticed, we've changed places. I'm actually just set up temporarily in a room because we have moved houses. So I no longer have the studio that I was in. I have to build a new studio. So right now
we got to get a studio eventually.
I'm temporarily set up in a bedroom, and I'm actually possibly looking into a trailer to turn into a studio, so we can actually take it on the road with us too. I could set it beside the house and run power to it, and I could take it on the road and possibly hit some of these racetracks. So
that'll be fun.
It'll be interesting to see what I can come up with, but it all depends on money. So right now the show isn't really bringing in any money. We're not monetized because we don't have enough followers, and we don't sell any merchandise. I mean, it's tough to come up with the money to sell merchandise.
That's what we need to do. Is we need to sell merchandise. I want to get myself a Switch and Groove T-shirt. Can I get myself a Switch and Groove T-shirt and autograph it for people?
You have one.
I know, but I gotta get one I can actually sell off there.
Oh,
we gotta get some stickers. We gotta get out there, Russ. Come on, let's get on this.
I'm trying, but it's kind of tough being a single dad, and every other weekend I have kids, and
that's understandable. I'm just giving you a hard time. But thank you for joining us, Kevin W. and the other Kevin. I can't pronounce his name.
Kevin J. Cox.
Yeah, I got to pronounce him. But it was good to have some new viewers. We had a lot more people with the comments this week, so I'm happy about that.
J. Cox is actually my lead man at work too, so I got to behave. No, Kevin's pretty cool. I like Kevin. So, but yeah, Kevin W. You can also go back. We haven't been on YouTube maybe a year, I think, Nathan, when we've been.
But about a year.
I originally started this show with another fellow named Richard Dueling, and all of those episodes are actually on Facebook. And if they haven't started deleting them yet, because I haven't saved them, it is what it is.
Been a little busy.
I haven't had time, so. But yeah, you could. If
you're looking for another episode, also we got Brandon Spithaler is one of the drivers we did.
Yeah,
so if you know anything about Brandon.
We had Aaron Fry from Fast. I've had a few people join over
Who
the
was the
time.
announcer we had? I liked that episode. That was my favorite.
That was Alex Robinson, the All Star announcer this
That's what
year.
it was. Alex was one of my favorites. I liked Aaron Fry because that was a good history episode.
Yeah, that
And
was
then
really cool. I
obviously
like
I
that.
know Brandon, so that was a fun one for me.
Brandon's
That might have been our
phone.
most viewed episode ever.
Brandon, for the first 7 minutes of that episode, Brandon had his phone sitting on the speaker, so it kept cutting in and out on the audio on his side. But
Oh yeah,
once he turned it sideways, it was all right.
but that's one
But it
of
was
our
fun.
most viewed episodes, Kevin. If you get a chance to watch that one, and also we always have some pretty cool episodes. We do some different interviews and whatnot. We had a lot of fun with some different people. So hopefully someday we'll get somebody from NASCAR. I got to get somebody from NASCAR to come do an episode, driver or something.
Now we were supposed to have Ron Hornaday on when I had Richard Grueling as my co-host, but something fell through on Ron's side. A meeting or something popped up, so that didn't
Hey, you never
happen.
know. Maybe someday we'll get Dale Jr. to finally join. I know he
But
watches our show.
but yeah, I mean, I actually plan to do frequent updates this week. I'd like to do one every day, but it's probably not going to happen. But I'd like to do one frequently over Speed Week to keep everybody updated. And so go ahead and subscribe so you don't miss out on any of that. And I may or may not have Nathan on with me at times. Nathan can't join me, so I will do a shorter episode by myself. And no big deal to me. It doesn't bother me any.
And
I'm
I'll try to get on a few regular NASCAR episodes. I know I've had a lot going on with everything personal, so I haven't got a few of them. But if you're interested in NASCAR stuff, Kevin or any of our other viewers, I'm going to attempt to do some more NASCAR episodes. With hopefully life doesn't get in the way anymore.
and
But I
I
know for you, you've got Ohio Speed Week. We've got the Firecracker 100 coming next week, so we'll be all full of dirt racing and NASCAR racing for the next few weeks.
and I am strictly dirt sprint car racing. I don't cover any other dirt stuff. I tried to, and it just got to be way too much to try to follow. And I'm a big sprint car fan, and there isn't a whole lot of people out there talking about sprint cars. There's a lot of late models and stuff like that. So I decided to stick with the All Stars, the Fast, whenever I can find anything. I can't watch their stuff online because I don't have their subscription to their streaming service. I can't keep up with all these streaming services. So I stick with All Stars, Fast, High Limit, Outlaws, and some local stuff here and there when there's a good local story, particularly Attica, Fremont. I try to do some of that stuff, some of the posse
I more
stuff.
or less just cover local PA stuff and NASCAR.
Yeah, Nathan's our asphalt guy. I haven't watched NASCAR in probably a month and a half or so now, but uh, it, it's just tough for me to watch it on Amazon Prime and all this other crap. It's getting ridiculous. They just need to come out with their own streaming service and be done with it.
I believe they only have 2 weeks left, and then they go back to cable with TNT, which I think the midseason tournament starts the week after Pocono. So Pocono's next week's race, which unfortunately I won't be out there for that. We got Firecracker 100, so we won't make that race. So.
Yeah, we got a wedding coming up, so
I know I gotta get that prepared also and save up for that.
So anyway, Nathan, my dinner has been here for like an hour now, and it's probably cold, which is fine with me. I don't really
Mine's
care.
been sitting out there for like an hour and 18 minutes, so I'm getting hungry.
But I'm gonna hop off here and go eat some cold pizza, which I actually enjoy cold pizza, so that's fine with me. And call it a night.
Me too. So with Switching Grooves, we're going to wrap this up. So I'm Nathan Johns.
And I'm Russ Fritz saying race hard, stay safe.
Stay safe.
And we'll see you there.
Bye, everybody.
Good night.